If you're a new grad or someone who's just getting into the tech industry, it can be really confusing when you get your first offer. There's all these interesting terms like vesting periods, grant price, strike price, and exercise price, and then you'll hear someone talking about their total comp being over 200K, and you're asking yourself where you went wrong. Well, in this video, we're going to break down all of those terms, from vesting dates, stock options, RSUs, all of the shebang, so that when you sign your first offer, you can be more confident about what you're actually signing. When I got my very first offer, someone was there to help walk me through it and explain what each of the terms meant so I could be confident when I was signing. It is my goal in this video to do the same thing for you lovely people out there and make sure you feel more confident when you're actually signing that offer. Now, hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know what your stock options mean, what a vesting period is, and what your total comp is, and how to calculate it so you can flex on your friends. Now let's get right into it, starting off with the yearly salary. Your yearly salary is basically just the amount that you're going to make in a total year. Now, if you ever want to calculate your hourly wage from your yearly salary, or you want to see how it compares to a yearly salary, you can just take the number, divide it by 2, and then divide it by 1,000. You can just do the inverse of that if you're going from hourly to yearly, and it's more or less the same. Of course, there's going to be some differences here, a little bit of error, but we're okay with a little bit of hand wavy error. So moving into the next topic, which is your sign-on bonus. Basically trying to attract top talent to sign more quickly to an offer. Pro tip here, if you get an offer from a tech company and they don't have a sign-on bonus, just ask. Personally, I like to do this after I have an offer in hand or in my email inbox before I start asking for things and negotiating. You also want to see the terms just to make sure that there's not actually a higher sign-on bonus. Now, if you are like me and you don't like negotiating, you can just ask them, is there a sign-on bonus? It's super easy. I did this once and it actually got me $7,000 more on that particular offer. Moving into the yearly bonuses. Some companies have these, some companies don't, and they might extrapolate in the offer letter how much a average yearly bonus is or what the expected amount is. This will usually just be a percentage of what you're making, but sometimes it can be more complicated. And in this video, we're just going to leave it at it's a percentage of whatever you're making. Some jobs won't have this. It really depends, but let's get into the interesting things like stock options and RSUs. We're going to go over stock options first. These are more common at startups than at bigger companies, but hey, you might still get some stock options. The interesting thing about stock options is they actually don't have any worth until you exercise them. Basically, it's just the option to buy at a certain price. Now, why would you want this? For example, if you're at a startup, let's just take a startup for example, right? You're at a startup and you get the option to buy your stocks at $1 a share, and they're currently valued at like $10 a share or something, right? That means essentially you will make $9 on that share, of course, minus taxes, minus other things like that. But if you can sell them immediately at that price, you would make a pretty hefty profit. Now, the things with startups and stock options is if the company goes out of business, you're kind of screwed because then your options are worthless. But if the company goes public and then you sell your stock options, you could stand to make a lot of money. And this is why some people really like to go the startup route, because you can make a ton of money. Now, just to go over some terms really quickly, there is a grant price, listing price, and exercise price. Now, all of these things basically mean the same thing. This is the price that you can buy that option at. So the stock price is just saying you can buy your share at $1 or whatever the price is that's stipulated in your offer letter. I'm going to be throwing out a lot of numbers in this video, so do not assume that any of these numbers will be the same in your offer. Each tech company is very different, and people can also negotiate up higher if you have that particular skill set. Now, the next interesting thing about stock options is the vesting period. So let's just take some example. Let's pull a random number out of a hat. Let's say $100,000 of stock options because you're a baller. So if you have $100,000 of stock options that are vesting over a 5-year period, presumably you would get about 20,000 shares per year. So those shares could be worth 25 cents or they could be worth $10. It really just depends on the company, but that's basically vesting period. If you have a 5-year vesting period, then usually your stocks will vest uniformly over that time, or there might be some kind of cliff in the beginning. But Bridget, what's a cliff in stock options? Well, a cliff in stock options is basically that none of your shares will vest, or in another way, be usable. You can't exercise these options until you reach the cliff. So if there's a 1-year vesting cliff in our previous example, that means you won't get any stocks or any options until the very first year is over, which is kind of annoying if you're an employee, but you can kind of see why the companies do this. They want you to stay with them for at least 1 year, so they try to entice you with those stock options. Anyway, you're going to want to be careful about vesting periods and really read carefully because they can vest at different amounts of time. And when I was reading my offer initially, I didn't realize what a vesting cliff was or vesting periods, and it's only because I had someone next to me being like, that doesn't mean what you think it means. So anyway, you should just be really careful when you hear vesting periods and really make sure you understand when you're going to get those stocks and that they might not actually be worth what they're worth at the date when you get them. So if you get stock options, like a certain number, that's going to be very different than if you get a dollar value at that amount. Because if you're at a startup and they say, okay, we're going to give you $10,000 of stock options, and then the stock price tanks, you're still going to get those 10,000. But if they say, oh, we're going to give you 10 shares, which right now are valued at 10,000, but then the value drops, you're going to still get those 10 shares, but they might only be worth $5 or something. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at your stock options on a salary. Now, moving into a stock options more stable cousin, RSUs. RSUs are basically restricted stock units, and when you get these, they already have a dollar amount. You already own them. You don't have to buy them. So an RSU is basically a restricted stock unit, as I just said. It's the company giving you some stock in the company, some skin in the game. This will usually be in a dollar amount, but it can also be in a certain number of stocks. So you'll get that amount right off the bat, and you can sell them basically whenever you want as soon as they vest. Now, this kind of depends on the company, again, when they're going to vest, those vesting dates. And if you leave the company earlier, you might have to give back some stock options. You might also have to give back some of your sign-on bonus if you choose to leave a company early. Again, this is just them trying to hold on to you because they love you so much and they love the work that you're doing. Now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. And when you get your first offer, you're going to feel more prepared and maybe even try to negotiate a little bit.